So what are the different schools of ethics? Well, broadly speaking, there are three approaches to how you might construct an ethic or a scheme of morality for any situation or community. The first one is to use rules. That's often called a deontological school, and there's a clue in the word deontology, which is about rules that have often been to do with religion. So if you've heard of the Ten Commandments, or if you've heard thou shalt not, all those kinds of uses of language are about establishing rules to say this is the fact and this should never be different from this. So our systems of law are based on that school of ethics, which is that if you're very, very clear with people about what's okay and what's not okay, and people follow those rules, then they'll always be right. The problem with that school is whose rules, and sometimes you follow the rules and the outcome isn't what was expected. So when would you need a different sort of ethic? And that's where consequentialism comes from, which is about consequences. So if you make this decision or you do this behaviour, what will be the outcome? And there is an ethic called utilitarianism based on that, which is one of the most common ones in public life, which is that you're trying to maximise benefit. So you try always act in a way to create the greatest good for the greatest number. So utilitarianism as an ethic is about trying to imagine the future consequences of your current actions and to make the choice that will maximise the benefit for everyone. The problem with both of those really is they're imagining that every single choice you make is a point in time and you will always have a clean sheet of paper and you can decide on that day with that situation, do I follow a rule or do I look at the consequences and choose the right action depending on those potential outcomes? And of course, there is something about how do we build up ethics over time? How do we build your moral character? So there's another sort of ethics, another system called virtue ethics, which certainly dates back to Aristotle and probably before, which is about how do you become an ethical being? And that's much more focused on practices of ethics. So Aristotle talks about you become just by behaving justly, you become humble by behaving humbly, and it's something that neurobiologists would understand is it be and become. So if you want to become a kind person, you have to proactively indulge in kind activities in order to train that moral muscle up. So whether you're a deontologist, a consequentialist, or a virtue ethicist, the idea is that you should really be a mixture of all three, that you're trying to make sure you've trained your character to always be right and good and proper and just, but you're good at deciding which rules to follow and why, and you're also good at figuring out potential future outcomes so you always make good decisions.